Hey, welcome back. If you're thinking of starting a nonprofit, you might be wondering what it's really like to start and run a nonprofit that you built from scratch. So in this video, I'm going to debunk 9 of the top myths that I hear about starting and running a nonprofit organization. Whew, I need a haircut. Welcome back to my channel. If we haven't met before, my name is Amber Melanie Smith, and I make videos here on YouTube to help aspiring change makers with tips and strategies to help you change the world and live a life of impact and purpose. So many years ago, I started a nonprofit organization that I now am able to work for full time. And I get so many questions about how I got started, how I was able to build up the organization to be able to make it my full-time career and follow my passion. There's so much work to be done out in the world, and I hear from people all the time who just have the same passion that I did to make a difference and get started and see nonprofits as a potential path for doing so. But at the same time, there are a lot of misconceptions that I have heard from people about what it's like to start a nonprofit and run a nonprofit and about nonprofits in general. So I'm going to spend some time talking through those and hopefully help you out. Let's jump right in. Myth number 1. You can't make a living running a nonprofit. False. You can. I do. There is a catch though, which I'll cover a little bit later in this video. But the fact is that not only can you have a paying job working for a nonprofit, but the nonprofit sector employs about 10% of the American workforce, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So that's pretty huge. But the other part of this question is whether or not you can actually make a decent enough salary to earn a living working in the nonprofit field. The answer is, it depends. Unfortunately, many people working in the nonprofit sector are still underpaid. It's been kind of an ongoing discussion in the nonprofit world about how the sector should be paying more competitively and more fair wages to its workers, especially because nonprofits themselves are fighting for economic security and freedom for the very people that they serve. So they've got to walk the talk and pay their own folks a fair wage and competitive wage as well. That said, there are many nonprofits who do pay competitively and many positions in the nonprofit world where you can make a pretty significant and decent living. According to the 2019 GuideStar Nonprofit Compensation Report, which I'll go ahead and link below this video if you're interested, CEOs and others in management level positions in nonprofits could expect to make anywhere between $40,000 or $80,000 a year, depending on the nonprofit's annual budget. Myth number 2. The executive director, also known sometimes as the CEO, is the top position in a nonprofit. False. The executive director or CEO is the top staff position in a nonprofit organization, but in terms of power and the ability to control the direction of the nonprofit, that title goes to the nonprofit's board of directors. A nonprofit's board members are the unpaid leaders of an organization that are elected by the public, essentially. They have the power to create and amend the organization's bylaws or hire or fire the executive director and other staff. That's right. My nonprofit board of directors could fire me anytime they want, even though I'm the founder of the organization. That's something that usually surprises people. But having this balance of power is actually a good thing. It helps keep the nonprofit organization accountable to the public. And that's what it's there for anyways, to serve the public. This is a great segue into the next myth. Myth number 3 is you can own a nonprofit. When people talk about wanting to start a nonprofit, they often say, my nonprofit. But technically, once you start a nonprofit and get that tax-exempt status from the government, the nonprofit belongs to the public, not any one person. Then, as I talked about in the last myth, the nonprofit's unpaid board of directors sets the direction and the policy of the organization and can hire an executive director. By having a voting board of directors, it means no one person can control the outcomes and direction of the nonprofit, which I ideally is designed to make sure that the nonprofit is always serving its social impact mission and not the personal interests of any one person, founder, board member, or anyone else. So I always say if you're interested in creating an organization that you'll have complete control over, you might want to consider starting a business instead of a nonprofit. You can still help people and do good with a business structure. It's just that you won't be able to get tax-exempt donations from the public, and there are other trade-offs. Myth number 4, you can hire yourself. Going off of the previous myths that I just talked through, when you start a nonprofit, it becomes the property of the public, essentially, as directed by your volunteer board of directors. That means you can't hire yourself for a paid staff position. And if you're a paid staff person, you also can't have a vote. You either get paid and are staff, or you have a vote, but it's not both. If working full-time for the nonprofit you started is your dream, then the board of directors will have to be the body that hires you. It is totally possible to have a great relationship with a board and encourage them and ask them to hire you so that you can do this work full-time. That's what I did. The other thing is, often if you are hired as the executive director of a nonprofit, you can potentially be in control of other staffing decisions for people working under you. It's not necessarily true that the board has to have a hand in hiring your other teammates. It all depends on how your organization and bylaws are structured. Myth number 5, you choose your own salary. Unfortunately, this is false. Just like you can't hire yourself, you also can't determine your own salary. The board of directors votes on that when they make their annual budget. But here's what you can and should do. You should research fair compensation for similar roles in other nonprofits and present that to your board. You should ask for the salary that you think is fair and that you would like. The board may not vote to give it to you, but you can try. Myth number 6, grants are an easy way to get money. False again. I hear this one a lot. A common misconception is that grants are an easy way to get money to start or grow your nonprofit organization. But in reality, according to Giving USA, grants make up just about 20% of all charitable giving across the country. So what does bring in the most financial support for nonprofits then? The answer is individuals, rather individual donors in your community or your network. While less than 20% of all nationwide charitable giving comes from grants, 70% of nationwide charitable giving comes from individual donors, whether they're giving a couple dollars here and there or making a large gift. So for sustainability, you're actually way better off building in systems into your nonprofit that will inspire people to donate as individuals to your organization. It's also fairly challenging for brand new organizations who are just getting started to be able to get a grant, since most grant foundations look for a track record of success that might take a couple of years to build up. But if you are considering trying to get some grants for your nonprofit, I've got other videos on this channel about that topic and how to answer grant questions, so check those out. Myth number 7, nonprofits cannot sell items or services to generate funding. The good news is this is false. In addition to raising money through individual donations, events, sponsorships, and the occasional grant, many nonprofits generate revenue through something called earned income. Put simply, earned income is revenue for nonprofits that comes from the sale of items or services that are directly related to your charitable mission. If you attempt to sell items or services that are not directly tied to your charitable mission, you could get hit with IRS penalties. Here are a few examples of earned income models that other nonprofits around the country are doing that do tie directly to their charitable mission, and I hope that when I explain them, you'll see how. One example is how the Boys and Girls Clubs charge their members a nominal fee for club membership. This is a way that generates income for this organization that ties directly to their mission, because the club and having youth participate in it is their mission. Other examples might include charging a discounted fee for legal services, or asking for a registration fee for dance or art classes for your art nonprofit, or even how the Red Cross asks for a fee to train you in CPR. Training people in CPR is part of their mission, but it's okay for them to charge you a reasonable fee to be able to complete that mission. That's earned income. Myth number 8. If you want to change the world, Nonprofits are the best way. The short answer is not necessarily, and it depends on a lot of different factors. Keep in mind that the word nonprofit just means that your organization has a certain legal and tax structure. The nonprofit sector exists because the market, for-profit, private businesses, and/or the government has failed to meet certain needs of the community effectively. So nonprofits come in to take care of those unmet needs. For example, businesses focus on making a profit, and the government might be focused on making policy. That leaves a lot of gaps. Who's going to feed people who are hungry or build affordable housing? Now, if you want to be real nerdy, you should study how nonprofits in America differ from nonprofits around the world, because it is fascinating to see how they differ based on the economic and social structure of each country that they exist in. In America, though, this is how it is. All that said, though, sometimes a business structure is just the best structure to solve a problem. Businesses have certain advantages. They can raise capital and investments faster than nonprofits typically, and in some ways they might even be more financially sustainable because of the built-in money-making systems. And sometimes working within a government structure is the best. If you're advocating for policy changes, that might be the best way to go. The government might be slow-moving, but it is pretty good at bringing about large institutional changes once it does move. So if you want to change the world, think about which structure and which pathway might be the best for your mission. It might be nonprofits, it might not be. And the final myth, myth number 9, I talked about this in one of my past videos about creating social change that sticks. None of us are here because we want to make a temporary change. We want to change the world. What does that actually take? It could take decades, and so you've got to be committed for the long haul. And if you don't think a long-term commitment to the nonprofit sector is in your future, then at least set up a nonprofit that can be sustainable and have competent, skilled leadership take over for when you're ready to move on. Thanks so much for watching. What are some of the misconceptions that you've heard about nonprofits? Share in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. I really hope that this video was helpful to you. If you liked it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe, because I make these videos here regularly on YouTube to share everything that I've learned, triumphs, failures, successes, challenges, everything to help others on their own change-making journey. If you are on Facebook, don't forget I have a group called Change the World or Bust, where myself and other change makers are having some great conversations about how we can make a difference together. See you next time!